Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about potential. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, potential. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts when it comes to potential. So, luckily for me, I had to bring back Sarah because I loved picking her mind the last time when she was on the show. So, I was like, you know what, come on back. And she did. And she brought up the topic of potential. And this is a great topic, really, for us to all think about. So, ripping off the band-aid, Sarah, when you hear the word potential, what does that make you think?
Oh gosh, where do I start? Okay, so this just came to my mind today. Like you see warning labels has the potential to cause fire or the potential to cause cancer or the potential to blah blah blah. Is potential even real? Because we ignore those labels, right?
It's true. That's very true.
Right? If you're a smoker, it says that this product has the potential to cause cancer. You're still buying cigarettes, you're still smoking cigarettes. So does potential even exist? Was something that just came to my mind today. I know I have other thoughts when I brought up this topic, but that just kind of came to my mind. That does it even exist?
That is
So,
very interesting.
an interesting
Goodness.
question.
You just opened
Let's
up
just
a
jump right in.
whole, yeah, that's a whole new Pandora box because I didn't think about it not fully existing, because for a moment I thought of potential as a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So that's how
Right.
I've always seen it. But because you brought up the fact that it possibly doesn't exist, I guess it comes down to an extent, right? To an
Right. I mean, and
extent, it
and that's like in
can,
our minds, right? Like,
yeah,
yes, it does have the potential to cause cancer or start a fire or do whatever outcome it says. There is the potential for that to happen. But because it's not every time,
yeah,
we sort of dismiss it when it's like a warning label. But when we're talking about young people, or you're starting a career, or you're starting a new project or new business, it has so much potential. And there are ideas flying everywhere, and it's exciting. And it's, yes, let's tap into that potential.
yeah.
And then we don't do anything.
Yeah, that's the
Because we sit in
problem.
that potential because it sounds so good to have all this potential.
Yeah.
But until we actually can narrow in on what direction we want to move in, the potential just stays in that nebulous, doesn't really exist kind of space.
So what's interesting? That potential is kind of like motivation because you
Mm.
could have all the motivation all up in the air for every balloon to float and fly in, but in actuality, unless you put some action into it, you're not going to get anywhere. And I think that's what it also comes down to potential. You have to use those cigarettes to a certain extent to actually cause that potential harm of cancer to actually affect you. You have to be able to tap into your own potential and see where it goes, but you only be able to if once you actually start doing something.
Right. You
And
have to move, you have to experiment, you have to narrow the focus.
yes, it sounds like discipline and goals kind of go hand in hand with that. What I mean,
Right. And it's scary because it's easy to live in the land of potential.
yes, I was
Because
just
if I
about to
don't
say
try,
that.
I won't fail. I'll still have potential, which, as we just kind of started out talking, might be nothing.
Yeah, I mean, so is it even worth to be? I mean, because it sounds like a lot of the times nowadays people are saying I'm with someone because they have a lot of potential. So is it
Mm-hmm.
even worth to even be with someone if they are only holding on to
Mm-hmm.
potential? Because
That's a
in
tough one.
actuality, it seems like it's kind of you're holding your breath for something to may never happen.
Right, right. And I think that is kind of the nature of the world we live in. We live in this space of being sold on potential, on possibilities, on all the options that may open up once we buy this product or we get together with this person or whatever it is. We're being sold this potential. Right. So we buy into it. And yeah, we might commit to somebody because of what we see in them and how we see their future playing out, even if they don't see it.
Exactly. So,
I've experienced this myself in relationships, so we won't get too
hey,
deep into it, but it's real. And
it
I love that you
is.
bring up potential in relationship because we we put our own ideas onto other people and we see the potential we see, which they may or may not actually connect with or take action on ever.
Yeah. I know, but do you think it also has to come down to fear that someone doesn't actually come down? I mean, I know you kind of brought a little bit of it earlier in the conversation, but I mean, let's dive a little bit more into that, fear. How big of an impact does it really do to potential?
Yeah, and I think that's where we get stuck in that land of potential of not making things real is because we're afraid that if we take steps to make it real, if we take those actions or move in that direction, it closes the doors of the other possibilities and other like the additional potential that
Yeah.
may be lost if we move in a different direction. So I think that's one of the biggest fears. And the other one, of course, is going to be perfectionism. If I can't live up to my potential, why should I try? Because there's that fear of being able to live up to it. The visions,
Yeah.
big visions and dreams you have in your mind, right?
That's true. That is very true. It is hard to try to think about maintaining something that you really only want to just a glimpse of a taste of. You know what I mean? Because in actuality, nobody really wants to be famous. They just want to have the glimpse of fame. You know what I mean? Or they don't really know if they'll be able to handle millions and millions of dollars, but they just want to have a glimpse of it, just a little taste of it to see what it'll do in their life. But I think that's the potential, is that little glimpse. I mean, because anybody can really get millions of dollars, anyone can really get into fame nowadays. It's really pretty much easy, but it comes down to your direction, and I think direction really determines your potential because you can go in any direction to do anything for any goals, but it's like, what's that intention in that direction? I mean, what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of interesting thoughts there with the getting a glimpse of it because sometimes as we get glimpses of things, it becomes real and then it becomes even more scary. So we pull
Yeah.
back. And I've seen that a lot in business. I've seen that a lot in people who want to grow in certain ways, personal development or professional development. They get this glimpse, this taste of like, oh, I could actually be successful at this. And then they pull back because then it's like the new fear of, well, then what's going to be required of me? What does
Yes.
success mean for me? What does it mean about me
Mm.
if I have $1 million? Because we have our own stories about what things mean. And
Yes.
having $1 million just might mean having $1 million. It might not mean that you're a different person or that you're a better person or a worse person. It
Yeah.
just means there's a different amount of money in your accounts.
Yeah, that's it.
But we have a lot of stories, especially attached to money and
Mhm.
earnings potential and things like that. Those are things that come up in the. I'm not a financial advisor, but I've spoken with them, and it's all your earnings potential or your insurance is based on
Yeah.
your potential earnings. And I argue with my husband because he's like, I don't want to plan on potential, and I'm like, as much as I hate to admit it, he's kind of right. Like planning on potential
Yes.
is an interesting place to be because again, it's not real yet. It
Exactly.
could be if the right circumstances happen or if the right events take place or you take the right actions, you could realize the potential, but it's not real yet. So that's an
Uh,
interesting place to be. So then again, once you start to realize it, start to level up, yeah, pulling back, maybe you didn't want all of the money or all of the fame, but maybe some of it was good and it is going well, but then there's something at that next level that causes the fear to come in and maybe say, oh, do I really want this? Or
yeah.
what am I giving up to have this?
Well, that's interesting.
So the potential gain and the potential loss.
Exactly. And I feel like it also coming down to reverting back to your default setting because it's when you said, "Oh, am I I'm having fear because I'm going into the next level and it comes different obstacles that I've never faced before and that's scary." But you don't know your potential if you can even go through it, and it's boggling because it's like just circling over and over and over
I
again.
know I've
And
been talking about this a lot, so it's
I've
yeah,
never really thought
it's a
about it
whole
like
thing.
this. Honestly, never in my life did I think about potential in the way that you brought it up right now in this moment.
I knew it
And
would
I
be a good
think
conversation to have.
it is. It is because you don't think about potential not existing. You don't think about potential being something that is beautiful but ugly at the same time. You don't think about, oh, how fear really intertwines itself into potential as well. So it's like, yes, you can call it potential, but you can also call it so many other things as well because it's basically fill in the blank. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because what are you gaining depending on the circumstance, the business or the portfolio or the direction or the main whatever the main quotation marks is because you like you said you were talking about it with financing, you were talking about it, with students and their goals. So it's like it's fill in the blanks. Like, where in your life are you striving for and you have that fear? And what are you willing to do to go past that hump? Because, like you said, every level is going to have its own obstacles, it's going to have its own struggles, but it's going to come down to, are you going to continue to reflect on yourself and just push yourself? Or do you going to revert back to what's comfortable to make yourself feel comfortable? I mean,
Right.
I don't know. That's how I see it.
Right. Sometimes even those things we don't like about our lives, we know them, they're familiar. So we're going to,
Yeah.
like you say, go back to the default settings because they're comfortable. It's better the devil you know, right, than the one you don't.
Yeah.
You have to level up yourself. You have to become different to
Yeah.
experience life at the next level. And that is really, really terrifying because it is a death. It's a letting go of who you were so
That's,
that you can become what you want to be.
yeah.
So it's terrifying. And that's why I think so many people stay in the land of potential.
Yeah.
Because if I don't try, I can't fail. If I don't, there you can stay having potential for your whole life and then it is over. And I don't want somebody at my funeral saying, "Oh my gosh, she had so much potential."
That's the worst thing to say.
Right?
That's the worst thing to say. Oh, that's cringy. Goodness, don't
Right?
you dare say that at my funeral.
And but it's so insidious because it sounds good. It sounds good.
Yeah, it's like
Right? Like
it's just a little sprinkle,
it is.
but tastes
It's
like
so
dirt.
insidious because we think it's a good thing to have potential. And it's not to say that it's a bad thing to have potential. It's
Yeah.
just we get attached. So we see so much of that good. Oh, what potential? I could do anything. I can be anyone. I can go anywhere. But eventually you're going to have to take a step.
Do
You're going to
something.
have to
Yeah.
buy a plane ticket. You're going to have to make a decision about who you want to be for real.
Yeah.
Because I tell you something, I've looked, nobody's hiring for anything.
I
So
love
when I
that.
graduated college and they told me I could be anything, I didn't find any job.
Right? So you put it in the search
Um,
title, anything.
anything, right? So
Specifications, please.
right. So helping people filter like what is the right potential to tap into? What is the right strength within yourself? So it becomes this balance of finding the authenticity and the strengths and the interests and the passions
Yeah.
where you can then start taking steps and feel fulfilled and that your potential has been fulfilled or is in the process of being fulfilled.
Mm.
We want to look back on our lives and we say, look what I accomplished. Look what they did with their life. Look at the legacy. We don't want to look
Yeah.
back and say, oh, I had so much potential. What did I do?
Yeah, that's very true. I think setting small goals and actually being able to accomplish them and check them off on your list, that right there should motivate people to see that that's potential already. That's goals being set. That's motivation. That's being having discipline behind it. That's getting pursued to the direction that you really want to be in, and that's a lot. And people don't look at those little goals. People don't see that as anything, and it is frightening, but I think when you realize that you'll never be at your full potential unless you make a definition of what full potential means to you, then
Right.
you'll never seek that because
There
it's
will
going to be
always be
subjective.
a moving goalpost, right? There's always the potential for
Exactly.
more, every level, even the millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires in the world. Like there's always going to be another level that they want to get to. So there's always more potential. As long as we are alive, we're not finished, right?
I know.
Like there's
I know.
always going to be more to learn. There's
Yeah.
always going to be more ways we can grow, or more opportunities to serve, to love, to give back, to leave a legacy, to empower other people, to learn about ourselves and all the things, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it and it can feel really discouraging, especially like you said, if people don't celebrate along the way, if you don't celebrate your milestones, if you don't celebrate how far you've come, it can still seem like you're facing down this like vast void of potential, where it's like this vast landscape ahead, where it's like, oh, where am I even going?
Yeah.
But then if you look at the road behind, you can see, oh, I've been there and I've done this and I've become this person. And now I can go the next step in the direction of my choosing. And you always have a
Exactly.
choice. If you start off on the wrong path, you can always turn around, or you can always make a detour. You can
Yeah.
always figure out what's next, because that clarity comes through action, through taking steps
I
and
like that. I like that statement. The
bringing,
clarity.
yeah, and it brings the next the next scene into light. We just had a lot of fog, I think, in a lot of places on the in the
Yeah.
United States. I'm in Wisconsin, so it was very, very foggy for like 4 days,
I know. I
and
know.
you
It's
couldn't see it.
crazy
You couldn't see
foggy.
the block ahead. You couldn't see the stoplight. But you
I
know what?
know.
Like I could see the bumper of the car in front of me, and I could see the road, and I knew the direction that I was going. So I trusted that the next step would get me there. And taking action is how we start to build that discernment of what's right for me. Did this work? Is this not working? Why not? And what would work better?
Yeah.
So instead of playing in potential, I'm playing more or leaning more, especially when the people I work with, whether it's clients or people I'm hiring to help me in my own business, is, are you trying to sell me potential and possibilities? Because I can see all that. Like I can see all that. What
Yeah.
I need from people right now are the ones who are ready to get kind of real and into the goo, into the muck, and say,
Yeah.
okay, here's how you build the next thing.
There you
Like
go.
here's how you take action in the direction
Mm-hmm.
you want to go. And so that's what I try to do for my clients in my coaching. And then again, what I'm looking for, because like I said, we're being sold this all the time.
Yeah.
I'll show you the possibilities. I'll show you what's possible. I'll show you the potential for your business. That's great. How about you show me how to make the next $100? Like, instead of showing me that I could have a six-figure, whatever, like passive
Yeah.
income business. No, like show me how to make $100 online. Like
Exactly.
that's
Like
all
I
I
need
want right now.
step
Like give
tutorial.
me the
Like
steps, give me proof of concept that this potential is actually possible, because I've bought into a lot of possibilities that did not come to fruition. And
yeah. A lot of
it's
people do.
time for the how. It's time for the process. It's time for the systems. And it's time for us to realize that our fears are valid. Like
Yeah.
leaving behind something, that seemed like a part of you or still is a part of you, but having to move in a different direction because you have to move. It's okay to be sad about it. It's okay to, not know if it's going to work out. It's okay to be frustrated and scared,
Yeah.
but staying still, I don't think is an option anymore.
To be honest, I think at this point in our lives, we need to realize that just standing still, you're only hurting yourself because you can be in grief, you can be in sorrow, you can be hurt, you could be just scared or just in anxiety, but
Yeah.
just standing still and not doing anything is
Life
still
doesn't
doing
stop.
something. Exactly. Life doesn't stop around you, time doesn't stop. And if you want to know the proof, who died recently and who's still living on and moving on? Point blank period. At the time still is going to evolve and grow and move even when we don't know what to do. And I think that at that moment when we don't know what to do is the perfect moment to do something,
Right.
because when you were talking about earlier, excuse me, how, potential and people don't actually move on it and do something about it, it made me realize, like, that's kind of like resolutions, in the beginning of the year, everybody's constantly doing resolutions. I'm this way, I'm gym, I'm right, I'm gonna quit alcohol, I'm gonna do this and this and this and this. But what are the steps that you're gonna do? You know what I mean? I
Right.
think that's the
And that's
biggest
why
part. Like,
95% of them fail.
exactly, because
But if we
nobody actually
look,
talks about the steps.
what are the 5% that work? They probably have something measurable. They probably have something they can see. They probably are, more realistic about it. I feel like the SMART acronym of SMART goals is a little bit redundant, but just being specific about what it is you want and how and the steps it's going to take to get there. What do you need to give up? Who do you need to become to get there?
Mhm. That's very true. That's very true. So I'm curious because I've been speaking with a lot of people about manifesting.
Mm,
And when I hear manifesting and I think of what we just been speaking about, I mean, you can live in potential and just
mm.
manifesting. So, I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Um, Manifesting, I think, is all a matter of perspective. And it has to do with the stories we tell ourselves about what's happening around us or within us. And I feel like it can be explained by what is it called, the reticular activating system, or the reticular, I don't know, it's the when you want to buy a certain car and then you see all those cars on the road around you, right? Like I want
Yeah.
to buy a Subaru, so like suddenly I see like a
Tons
hundred
of Subarus.
Subarus on my
Yeah.
way to work or whatever. So it's like you start thinking about it and then your brain lets in the things that you're thinking about. So it's scientific manifestation and, universal magnetism or whatever you want to call it. It's real. And I think at the same time, it's really interesting because some of those things have already been there and then you're not going to see them until you start thinking about it and start looking for them. So when bad things happen, but I keep saying to myself, everything's always working out for me, I'm going to see those situations that might break somebody else as opportunities for me to grow and learn. I don't know, see miracles happen because I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
So manifestation is about looking for what you want instead of trying to avoid what you don't want. And I think
Okay.
sometimes people with, same with potential, whereas like until you kind of get real and specific about what potential you're looking for in yourself and other people,
Yeah.
you may not realize that it's already there.
Yes, I like that. I like the way that you put that. That's beautiful because somebody said that they feel that, they're working hard, they do the right thing. Every day they're pushing, they're just doing what they can to the best of their ability, and they still feel like they have not reached a full potential. But
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, I feel like they're doing it every day. You know what I mean? In
Right.
my perspective, how I see it is that if you're trying and you're not giving up, and you acknowledge the struggles, you acknowledge you're tired, you acknowledge you're exhausted, but you still
Right.
keep going, that's living in your full potential. I mean, that's
Yeah. And that's
expressing
acknowledging,
it.
the work you're putting in and also an opportunity to say, well, what do you mean by not living up to your potential? Like digging into it. What does that even mean when you say, I don't feel like I'm there? Well, where's there? Where do you want to be? And
Exactly.
maybe you have these goals, maybe they're realistic, maybe they're not. And maybe it is time to shift and reflect on, is this goal a realistic goal for me in this moment?
Mhm.
Or is it a goal for 2 5 years down the line? So
Yeah.
sometimes we always have to kind of adjust based on what happens because nothing is going to go according to plan.
Yeah.
We can plan till the cows come home, but until we start taking action, we're not going to see how the plan works or not. Most of the time it doesn't. And you end
Exactly.
up having to plan. I'm an expert in playing in plan B, and I'm actually working on going after plan A more intentionally because I'm one of these kind of go with the flow, like it'll come when it's ready. The timing, it has to be, is going to be right
Yeah.
when it's right. I'm a go with the flow. Plan B, what do I want? Oh, okay, well I can get there through the back door. That's cool. And I don't necessarily take the inspired action on the original, like on an actual plan that I lay out. I kind of
Yeah.
react and respond. So that's something that I'm
Mm.
actually in the midst of working on for myself is what potential am I trying to reach? What does it look like? What is my plan and how am I going to execute plan A so that plan A is the thing?
Wow, I like that. I like that a lot because that puts a lot into consideration for myself because I feel that you just described me in a nutshell.
Mm.
And
And
I think a lot of people
that's why we
are
have a good conversation.
exactly. That's why this just flows easily. But no, I think a lot of people are listening or, who are going to be thinking about this and realizing, you know what, that's kind of how I do things too. And a lot of people do. They just live off of the emotions of the time. Yeah, they're kumbaya, chill to people, but at the same time, we want stuff. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
and
We
I
have
love being in
desires.
control too. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm
exactly.
kind of go with the flow, but I kind of also like to be in charge.
Exactly. Like I kind of like both depending on the situation and who's around me. I might, lean on one side versus the other, but control and knowing what's going to happen next is
Yeah.
is satisfying to me.
Yeah.
But also knowing that I have no control in certain areas can be you know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
oh no.
that can be a real sticking point. I've talked to several clients who've had those two conflicting beliefs at the same time. Like, I
Yeah.
need to be in control. Control is an illusion. And I'm like, okay, so which one do you actually believe? And if you're believing both, then it's going to be a struggle, right? Because both those
Yeah.
beliefs are in conflict with each other. So
But both are right
it's
and both are
possible
wrong. It
to
just
hold
depends
both.
on the situation. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
depending on the context, yes, let go. But depending on the context, yes, hold on. So it's just like
Right.
we have to
You still get to
rationalize
choose. Yeah.
exactly and have that constant reflect and that self questions. Like my husband is constantly looking at me and like, what are you doing? Like, who are you talking? Like, are you talking to me? Like, I feel like I'm constantly talking to myself because I'm trying to put myself on check continuously because sometimes my mind just goes on like this loop of like Neverland that is just all terrifying, but then also so beautiful. So it's a
Right.
double-edged sword.
And that's, just sort of circling back around to the potential and things is like, it is beautiful to dream and daydream and envision the utmost life that you imagine. Like, it's so okay and so necessary to do that and to really look at that vast sea of potential before you. It is really, really important. But when it comes time to move, you have to pull back a little bit and say, well, what's the most important? What's the most important piece of that picture? And start going in that direction. And again, the action, the clarity that follows, and then whatever choices you have to make along the way to come up with that intentional plan forward. And the plan Bs we ultimately will have to pursue eventually. But yeah, it's important, like you said, to have both, and there are appropriate times for both. And I think so much is lost when we don't truly get curious about and imagine what that potential actually is. We lose sight of it, or we don't move because it seems overwhelming or too much or too big or too scary, or we'll have to give something up in order to achieve whatever it is. When we let that fear make the decision, then we stay standing still while the world and everybody else moves around us
Yeah.
and gets to where we want to go. So yeah, collaborating, getting people who can show you the dream, the vision, and also the ones who can say, okay, here's the next step. Get to that
Yeah.
next stoplight. Let's go.
Exactly. We need to start having more balance. I think that's the thing that a lot of people are lacking. Is having that balance where you can have someone tell you, maybe you shouldn't, but then also having someone be right there, be like, you know what, maybe you should. I mean, it's like, oh,
Right.
it made me think of those angels and devils on the shoulders. It's kind of like that,
Yes.
we have that. And I think
Right.
it's our in our conscious, but it's just like, oh my goodness, time is running out, and I feel like we can continue talking about potential and everything for so much
it
more.
it
Oh
leads
my
into
goodness.
a lot of sort of offshooting conversations about
It
things
does.
that I have
Tons.
seen with clients. I'm thinking back on what we've sort of covered, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so much in 20 minutes, however
I
long we've been
know.
talking.
I know.
It's a lot. So my intention is always, especially when I work one-on-one with people, is like, let's simplify it to the, what is the one piece of the vision? What is the one step you can take? What is the one next opportunity or next challenge? And take it one thing at a time. I'm reading Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. Yeah, Anne Lamott right now. Bird by Bird, really good about writing. And just got to take it one step at a time. You got to write a crappy first draft before you write
Exactly.
the next draft that people can actually look at. So
Exactly.
sometimes it's just pulling back and saying, like, what is the most important thing right now, and what action can I take to get closer?
Exactly. That's the best part. I think that's beautifully said. And if anybody who's listening who wants to know more or about Sarah and maybe she can guide you in the right direction, go hit her up. I have a beautiful photo on my website. And you can check out the last conversation that we had. If you didn't check it out, what are you doing? Go think about it with us. So, anyways, always keep thinking, y'all. Be safe out there. Bye.